It's been quite a while. I hope you're doing well. I thought I've been working quite hard recently, actually, on other bits of work, but we're also got like a database being created now. Uh, where all the information has all been standardized and things like that, so we can easily track these blocks and the damages and the missed ink, and we're finding all sorts of interesting things. And we're finding, or we're not finding, which is proving interesting as well, specific countries where we can't find a green man and stuff like that. But I've always kept in mind what you were talking about with the planets and astronomical events and things like that. And there was something that really was quite fascinating, and I don't really know how to explain it because it's out of my kind of, well, everything's out of my kind of like comfort zone. But this it's quite accurate if it's correct. So I thought it was worth mentioning to you because I think you would be able to understand it a lot better. And what we have here is a Green Man book, Babel, and this is like 15, what we got, 15, 50, 81, 15, what's that? Yeah, 15, 50, 70, and 81, yeah, 1581, so quite early. And this has a Green Man as well. I hope you kind of remember, but like the Green Man had a what? Well, all copies basically had like a single line. Uh, and then I was talking about how the English, or in the London block, you could see what looked like a what, and it was labelled a notable what. Well, in this Green Man, the whole line that is normally in this area, like here, uh, is basically totally gone. So I had a good bit of interest in this, and the title is basically the ordinances for the Reformation. But to cut along, so it's not the Reformation like we would think, even though I think secretly that's what they mean. It's about uh, clothes and meeting in public and banquets and things like that, and how you should dress. In fact, it's mostly about how you should dress. It's only like 30 pages long. It's just so interesting that it's in French, and a certain person I'm going to talk about ended up being like the ambassador to France and things like that, a Henry Neville. Uh, so if I just kind of go through things, and I don't want to spend a lot of time in the little nitty gritty because it's not the whole reason why we're here. Because I like to pay a lot of attention when this AA carving appears, because you know how we track that down to its earliest. And this isn't Vignon, so this has basically been handed to this gentleman here. And yeah, so I just wanted to kind of show you the start of it. It is a green man, and it's a green man of interest. And just to start, I don't really want to spend. Oh, sorry, it's a bit windy outside. I think we've got a storm kicking off. Uh, I'll just zoom in a little bit. This is just the first page, and the first thing I kind of noticed was Velis. We have Velis as a telestic basically at the end, Velis. And I know it's kind of jumping the gun, like saying straight away that, oh, this is Henry Neville, but when I kind of looked here, I did see Nevele for Neville, but it should be an I. And if you look, SIE is Sigh, and I know like the word sigh, oh, SIGH, but that originated from sigh, and sigh means down, to go down, basically. This is when we check the word history and stuff like that. What I've got here, I'll just kind of show you here. This is basically SIE sigh, and the English of it. It's giving you the alternative forms and things, but basically it's just a drop, to sink, to fall, to drop. I think that's where we kind of get this idea of sighing, like, oh. And this is basically, and when I look, if we wanted that to be an I, there's an I directly above it, an SIE, and then you see the E, it's falling down the page. And as you know, we can see lots of examples of how this is like kind of concealed writing. So Henry Neville, as you probably remember, we put Envil Velis, meaning basically like do no harm or something along those lines. And it's basically in French, this is like advice, conseil, and it's basically advice, and that's what Neville's or Envil Velis or Neville Velis is basically giving you, like do no harm kind of thing. It's advice. So I know that is a bit kind of weak, and it's only a very small book. But Henry Neville was in France at this time. He was travelling about at this time. He did become the governor, the ambassador to France. And I'm going to just push on a little bit because this is when it becomes quite interesting. Sec. So all I've done here is just come to the next page, which is one page down from the next. And yeah, it's interesting stuff. I won't like too much, but if we see here, what we have is like an acrostic and a telestic combination, and we have DOES here. So we have dot or dots, and then at the other side we have less, LESS, or for like dot less. And true enough, once you look through this whole book, this happens only one time, and there is other examples of a comma with the I, and it's got the dot. So what we've got is a dotless I, and it's the only place in the book we have this. Because when I check others, I looked for other examples where you have the comma immediately before the I, and it still has the dot. So I thought this was extremely strange. But one of the bad things is I can't get another copy of this book to check that it is concurrent through all the books. I would really like to. There is another copy in Belgium, but I would need to go and actually visit it. So that's on the back burner for now. So dotless, we've got this kind of dot missing, and the term is Kessilia, and it's what if there is Kessilia. It's like a translation in French is like what if there is no dot? You know what I mean? What about it? It's kind of just like before. Apart from it's French, it's like a little clue, like Kessilia. What about it? Why is there no dot? So it forces you to kind of take a closer look. And then we have LEEN, like a phonetic version of lean, LEAN. And sure enough, there is two dots here. And in the book, this only appears one other time. The two dots are generally parallel, vertical. This running off at a leaned angle only happens one more time in the book, and I've not got to that page yet to start working on. So that taking into account that we've got the word ensemble for French meaning like a group of or gathered together, and it's two dots that are gathered together, it really got me kind of thinking what exactly it is going on in this page. It's basically beckoning you on with Keskile, was it Kessilia? What's it all about? And so just coming down the little page again, I come across like the word item. And at first I seen itemless, and I thought, okay, itemless, dotless, but the word item in these days, it's quite a surprise, but I'll just show you, I'll just check because, just to be sure, one sec. So what we've got here is basically, a sec. Oh. Got the word item, but when we look at when this word was basically in use, from Middle English, Latin, but so obviously we're kind of before the verb, we're kind of about sense 5 during this time, and sense 5 is basically the obsolete version of it, like the old English term of it, meaning a warning or hint. And this is something I'd never kind of heard before. Like this, all the other kind of terms are quite common and things like that, but So I've got this kind of hint in my mind, and we've got dots in this dotless. So what I'll do is, when we have a look in this area, especially when we've just had dots, we get 2 4 points a point, and 4 points is basically like those custom fitted jackets you would see at the time. For the males, it's kind of like really tight fitting kind of thing, quite the style. Although 4 points is like an older name for it. But basically, in my mind, we've got points, a point, like point to point, and in it, we've got between it taking on the last letter of point and the first word of the next point, it's past. So I'm thinking like points past points. And it only takes a couple of really like seconds to actually notice that there's something going on here. And I just want to point out that you've got 1, 2, 3 dots in a line. Doesn't mean anything obviously because it's just 3 dots. But we miss that dot and this dot. So I was a little bit disappointed with it. I was thinking 5 dots would be better than 3. Taking like a closer look on it, I noticed something else. And we've got this another 3 dots. And it takes us to this point here. Basically kind of joining these together pretty much. And what was kind of the first thing that I noticed was, obviously I was going to check the angle on it, and I'll just show you just to show how kind of accurate this is. Let's see, bring this up. I'll whack this right on the spot. Right. Let's just reset itself. Right. We get 106 degrees. Like exactly. This is something that I haven't really came across too often. Like this accurate 106. It's normally like a 53 or 37. So obviously in my mind, Rosie Cross, and I do come across Rosie Cross on other pages, but I'm not going to go there right now. So in my mind, I was thinking that was kind of it. Like, but then I kind of like noticed a few other things happening. Like here we have novel inventees, which is like a new invention. So the more I kind of thought about it, that's a kind of like a bit strange, a new invention. So I persisted with it a little bit, and so I decided to kind of make that like a focal point, a centre, as you will, and decided to try to put a circle on it. And I've only took this size for a reason, and it'll become clear in a minute. As you can see, we come under this one, we come inside this one, but we're past that one. So using this as a centre, we're never going to get it to align in these points. So I didn't think anything of it, but the more it just kind of, something didn't sit right with me. So if I just get rid of that for just now, if I try to actually make these like fit, if I move it about, so I'm going to get rid of the old centre line for now, just to clear things up. I'll get rid of this point and point stuff so it's still easy to see. What you get, when I change the centre, I can take it through the dot, and through this dot here. So we kind of land on the 3 dots. But what it does is basically take it away from the centre line, and I have to form a new centre line to make it. I hope that wasn't too confusing there. So what you get is the centre line, the first one is the blue, but when we move it to make it fit the dots, we get this interesting kind of picture. And I still didn't understand what was going on. It could just be nothing, but these 2 circles are the exact same size. So that's how I got the fixed blue size, because this is a size which manages to take in the 3 dots in a circle. And the centre line for this dot is now here in the middle of nowhere, basically. But I thought, how do I know that what I've done's it's right? You know, it's just all interpretation. So when I put using the same centre, I put a circle round, take in the dot, it falls right on where the dot is missing. So I was thinking, there's something quite quite strange going on here, that these things should actually all come together and land me on where it all started with the missing dot. You know, so okay, I was thinking, what does this mean? And the more I looked, I began to realise that I'd seen something similar to this before. And what we've got here is basically Henry Neville's portrait before he, well, for the governor of France, I think it is, before he just started his appointment. Yeah, as a diplomat to France. And if you look up here, what we've got is, I'll just get the translation a second. Somebody's already kind of took a look at this portrait before and translated this, because there's a bit of Greek at the bottom. And basically what it's saying here is absolutely without prostapheresis. It's like a term in an astronomical meaning, like a correction. And I know this was like a maths that was used, and this maths was used to help make long astronomical calculations much easier, basically using like trigonometry and set charts to kind of restrict this down. And it was like a new learning, and Henry Neville had seen this when he went to visit somebody in France. Basically, he was shown this by Paul Vitich, when he was travelling around. And so I decided to take a little look at this more. And basically what this is the sun, and I imagine it's shown at its highest, and it's travelling around, meaning the earth is in the centre here, and this is the sun. And these is like, how can I describe, possibly like a, not a wobble, but what I found is when they were looking at things from, when I'll just get the description so this makes sense. Yeah, so what we've got is, in ancient times the term was used to mean a reduction to bring the apparent place of a moving point or planet to the mean place. Copernicus mentions that several times in his 1543 work to mean the great parallax caused by the displacement of the observer due to the Earth's annual motion. So what they were getting was, I think, about a 1.5 to 2 degrees kind of difference between their calculations and their observations. And these charts were put in place to kind of correct this kind of motion that wasn't getting taken into kind of like account. So, like, with that in mind, and Henry Neville from the front page, when I come back and take like a kind of deeper dive into this, and then I take a look at what Copernicus is talking about, and here, what we've got is basically an example of this, where not Copernicus, but Ptolemy, I think, used an equant, like a different centre, to try to explain the motions and that he was seeing, like Mars looping on itself and things like that, not understanding that the fact that we are moving and Mars is moving, and this is the speed, and we were going quicker, so we would overtake Mars in our orbit, and it would make it look like Mars was backing on itself. So, and if you kind of just look, what, I'll just try to get this a bit smaller so you can see them both together. I can do it a little bit better. Sorry, I'm just not kind of organised. I thought this would go a little bit better than what it has done. So what we kind of get is something that is extremely similar, we've got the kind of line coming through, and then this coming off at the angle, and how it kind of changes the centre. And when we look kind of close here, we've got like two centres, and if I put the blue one back again, just a second, I think I've got it here. So this was the true centre with the blue, but the corrected centre that then takes in the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3 dots, while the blue only takes in 1. And it's so similar to what's here, and also what Henry Neville is trying to put across here. Well, to my best of my kind of knowledge. And they're saying that this is him putting an astronomical touch to his motto, like do no wrong, like no correction basically, and this doesn't need a correction, apart from the fact that it shows the sun going round an orbit of, I assume he means the Earth. But I think Henry Neville's trying to say something else here. Because if I spend too much time like really focusing on this kind of thing here, it's quite interesting that once you make the correction, you go through it all. So I'm just going to get rid of these so it's just not getting too confusing to kind of see. Where's this other circle? One sec. Yeah. Now, if I take a mixed middle, as in I take the horizontal axis and I take the vertical, but one from each, basically like the middle ground, it changes. Yeah, well, sorry, I just paused that there. I won't kind of go into that, but if you take the kind of middle ground, you get the kind of same result. But let me just get rid of this kind of stuff here. I've got so much stuff on the kind of screen. So this is me just brought it back to the big circle, which ties in with the dot and hits the missing dot, and the one that takes in the 3 dots due to the correction that's happened. So I'm obviously thinking along the lines of like an astronomical kind of event or telling the truth. But when I look a little bit closer, what I noticed was we get SUN pointing in the middle. And if that is the word sun, and we have PAST, meaning past, I'm thinking that is basically telling you that sun should actually be pointing in there, or the line should go there, but they can't do that because it needs a dot there. And then I was thinking, I'm overthinking this. Maybe what they're saying is this whole circle in the middle is the sun, because when on our line here we have XUN, so it's not spelled correctly, but you still get sun. So we've got like a kind of a one that's nearly correct, but it's not, and it needs corrected to sun. So I was kind of thinking that either this is all kind of quite bizarre or fake, but what then I noticed is if we come up to here, we get TERE for terre, and terre in French is earth. Well, it's TERRE for terre in French for earth. But as we know with typesetters, I can go to any page and find a word, and then 2 lines down the words get 1 letter missing that the other typesetters used. But if you zoom right in, because you're interested in why is there possibly not another R there, what you get is orbs. So Earth is an orb, and it's basically going round the outside, and in the centre we have the sun, which is basically the Copernicus view. And then you begin to realise that these 2 dots leaning is the tilt of the Earth. or that's it, as kind of far as I kind of got. I wish I could have explained it a little bit better here, but I think there's something to do with this calculations or the thing with Henry Neville, uh, and the astronomical alignments of the sun there, and how it didn't need corrections. And this is what he would need to show, that the Earth was the centre and the sun goes round that. Because even though it was a Protestant country, they were still under a church, like a church's teachings, even though it wasn't a Catholic church. It still was not a good thing to do, especially. I don't even think we've got to the 100 years, no, the 30 years war yet. So having the belief that the Earth is actually the centre instead of the sun doesn't need any kind of explanation. It's not a good thing to be. So that obviously there's a little bit more to it, but just the fact that it is so similar to the explanation for Copernicus of what was going on, and you can see how you would have the red circle and the blue circle. And what he's saying is, he explained that instead of having to invent this equant to try to explain what they were seeing in the sky, to explain away things like Mars, and I think something else just didn't seem to make sense. They've came out and they've gave this other impression of how to explain it, and they were saying that they were kind of circling, and that's how. But what I think they didn't realise is, you're standing on something that's moving as well, and this is how you were seeing these like spherical triangles type thing in the sky. And once they put the Earth in the centre, apart from a few things the sun in the centre, apart from a couple of little things they had to work out, they pretty much had it. So what I think I've got here is, just using a few dots, is Henry Neville basically putting forward that, yeah, the sun is a heliocentric model, and the sun and the Earth as orbs going round.